So talking of personal and magical, I've got a subject close to my heart in gaming, mobile gaming 2.0. Is it time for an upgrade? The gaming industry really, to be fair, I think, embraced mobile very early. And Flurry's been right at the beginning of that, supporting the developer community, leveraging analytics to really develop and design exceptional games and exceptional entertainment. And mobile gaming really brought gaming to the masses. The vast majority of us pre-mobile gaming didn't really count ourselves as gamers. I'm not a gamer. I don't have an Xbox, I don't have a PlayStation, I'm not a gamer. But then suddenly, we had easy access, low distribution, massive choice, and it's exploded on the marketplace today. And we see some stellar valuations, Supercell, King. It's just an amazing, amazing. And mobile gaming's really driving the valuation and the revenue for the games industry well over $100 billion. And we see at Flurry the share of time spent on smart devices being the most on gaming still. On a smartphone, it's around 32%. On a tablet, that actually rises to over 40% of our time spent on a tablet is in games, and often in the evening as an entertainment device of choice. So with that, I'm excited to invite the panel up. The moderator is affectionately known as Shu, Dan Shu from GamesBeat, editor-in-chief, and his panelists. So please give them a warm welcome.
All right. How's everybody doing? Good, good. All right. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, but I'm going to borrow a question from Omar Hanoi from Sequoia Capital. He did this at GDC, the Game Developers Conference. So he had the panelists introduce themselves and also tell the audience what's your highest Flappy Bird score. So Jonathan, why don't you go first?
I'll set the bar low. Hi, my name is Jonathan Flesher. I head up business development for an online gambling company named Betable. We're the first platform that allows game developers to actually incorporate gambling into their games. Prior to that, I ran business development for Zynga for 3.5 years and online business development for Electronic Arts. My Flappy Bird score is pitiful. It's probably about 9, I think, was my max before I threw my phone out the window.
All right. Christian?
Hello. My name is Christian Lamone, Vice President of Growth and Advertising at Glu Mobile. We make console-quality, free-to-play mobile action games. Prior to that, I was an early member at Tapjoy, helped open up offices in Japan and Korea and expand internationally. And before that, I was doing mobile M&A. And my top Flappy Bird score is somewhere in the low 20s, embarrassingly.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? My name is Sho Masuda. I'm a VP of Marketing at Gree. I'm also one of the starting member of the U.S. operations. I've been working at Gree for about 4 years. Gree is one of the leading mobile gaming companies and studios. We're headquartered in Japan. We started making free-to-play gaming back in 2006. We opened up our U.S. office and we started global expansion around 2011. My Flappy Bird score, for my own credit, I only played 3 times. It's horrible. It's 7.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. All right, so before we talk about the future of mobile, I want to talk about the sort of past and how it's affecting us now. So what are some of the issues from the past few years that are still issues in mobile gaming today in the business? Are we still talking about discoverability, monetization issues, app store problems? Are those still in a conversation today?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd say, when I think about discoverability, I think about 2 things. One is the actual install, and then the second is the actual placement on the screen. People often forget about that. It is very hard to get your app discovered, and yes, you do have phenomena like Flappy Bird that have sat out in late and follow for a while before taking off like a rocket ship. But in general, it's very hard to get an app discovered, and that has not yet to be solved. The app stores are similar to what I call the YouTube problem. You know, the most watched YouTube video will remain the most watched YouTube video. It's very hard to change that in such a small screen real estate. Second thing is when you place that app on the mobile device, you know, obviously the inordinate amount of usage tends to come from the home screen, and things that get buried second, third, fourth, fifth pages get very little usage. So that's a second part. That's part of the device factor. So yeah, it's still the challenges that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Do you agree, Christian?
Yeah. Hello?
Well, let's move to show real quick,
Okay.
and then we'll try to figure out. All right. There.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that the same basic problems that we had 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, are the same basic problems we have now. Discovery, engagement, search. It's good and very encouraging to see a new diverse array of discovery products, app install products like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube just made an announcement, Google AdWords, Google Search is enabling an app install product. So that it's nice to see a very diverse set of products coming to the market that are different than its standard ad network. Monetization, I think, is one of the positive signals that the industry has been able to tout over. We've been able to progress monetization as an industry and outpace and grow it pretty healthily. It's outpaced ad revenue, which is generally on pace with mobile smartphone penetration.
Yeah, let me answer differently so that I can provide different context. I think the issues that is more are like a past that doesn't exist today is definitely what Christian touched upon is the revenue. I think the mobile market is definitely bringing in a meaningful revenue and profit for many of the companies, including the folks here. And I think that was not the case in 2011. And after being 3 years in the market, you're seeing a lot of companies starting to do that. And I think the mobile has earned its place rather than just beyond one of the many devices of the digital entertainment. So I think that's very promising. That said, I think even though the market pie is growing, I think when it comes to the pie of users' time and users' discovery of apps, we're seeing who's going to own the bigger piece of that pie. And I think one of the example is, I think Flurry was saying the one that's sharing in this, but like average people open up 7 to 8 apps per day, and that has not changed over 3 years, despite the fact that there are more than 1 million apps available today. So you're going to see the competitions around discovery retentions no matter what. But the good thing is the monetization side, I think, has been solved by many companies, yeah.
Oh. All right, let's talk a little bit about the present. And right now, according to studies by a company named Flurry, gaming still leads mobile app usage by quite a large margin. It's 32% of time spent on iOS and Android devices. I think they mentioned that on the last panel, which is almost double number 2. So why has gaming grown to those kind of numbers today, Christian?
Yeah, gaming as a content lends itself really well to short session type behavior, which is very practical and very convenient when you carry your phone around all day. And you can there's several games that you can get a 30-second session in, and several games where you can get an entire 30-minute, 45-minute session experience, and they could be as deep as a RPG MMO or as surface layer as a Flappy Bird casual game.
Okay. Show.
Yeah, I think gaming is definitely the center of technology on mobile. I think there's the amount of the players that we have to compete with kind of forces the companies like Gree and Glu to put our 100%, if not 120%, on our day-to-day operations. At the same time, be on the cutting edge and always look for how do we retain and monetize users differently. And this is partly due to the severe competition that we're facing, but it's also, I think, due to the global nature of gaming. It's just gaming is a global experience. Anyone can play, games, whether in China and US, and just creates more competitions. So, yeah.
Jonathan, you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, similar to what fellow panelists have said, I mean, it's really the form factor. I can take my gaming platform with me anywhere. The devices are powerful enough to run some pretty interesting experiences. Small snippets of content can fill a void in your day, you know, while waiting for the bus, waiting for a meeting, or right before you go to bed, which is when I typically play on my iPad mini. I think gaming is at least going to stay flat in terms of share of percentage of time, potentially go upwards as you see gaming take more and more different forms on that device and go into different places like the living room.
Cool. Now, you guys mentioned that, you know, monetization is not as big an issue as it used to be, but yet a lot of companies still aren't making money in this space. Like, can this, do you think the bubble can burst? You know, is there a limit to how much that gaming can grow in the mobile space? Anyone?
I think that will end up getting solved naturally over the long term, and consolidation will help take care of that. Same thing with the servicing sector. All the SDK companies, there's probably 500 to 1,000 alone in the U.S. You know, company often would need a good, ideally 20 SDKs to cover best of market for every service product, and that's really not achievable in the same way that 1,000 awesome, high quality, high talent developers can't all be super successful in this market. So at some point, consolidation will help to be able to leverage competitive advantages in like core deep assets like UA and business intelligence, and that'll allow small teams that have like really unique talents to be able to showcase those and get those discovered and focus on what they're good at.
I mean, I think, you know, actually the monetization issue is part of what Betable solves for some of our developers. It gives them another avenue by which to monetize their user base. I think, you know, you're going to see more and more experimentations, and you're going to always run into developers who create applications that don't monetize. But I think there's many, many different options available, from, you know, the paid download model that we originally had on the feature phones with the carrier decks to free to play. And gambling as it's legalized in various jurisdictions. There's just lots of different ways for developers to monetize their audiences. So I don't really look at that as a problem. It's being solved, and new channels will be added over time. Again, I come back to it's really discoverability, which is, as my fellow panelist has said, there's new techniques, new players that are helping solve that. But also you're going to see those same techniques being used for re-engagement to get over what I referenced in terms of being buried on like the 7th page of someone's smart device to get them back to that app.
I think the global nature, I think we always have to look not just Japan, Korea, or US, but you know, we have to see what's going to happen this year in 2015. And you know, Gree's definitely paying attention to like South Asian regions, Eastern Europe, South American regions. And if you look at these markets, I think, you know, it's still too early to really talk about the bubble. I think the global nature of the mobile is always going to bring the newcomers into a space. Probably less and less because the market is definitely getting mature. But if you look at other regions that are just starting up, I think there's a lot more opportunities.
Now, do you guys see some of this growth and opportunity coming from the existing market and some of these guys maybe who haven't been making money starting to get to that point where they're profitable and they're being discovered? Or is the market big enough that there's still room for plenty of new companies? Because you know, is there a point where the VCs are going to start holding back some of their money? You're going to see investments slow down and so on.
There's still definitely room for success. I don't know if that answers the question, but revenue now I start to see a lot more correlated with investment. Monetization is now a learned asset and something that companies invest in the mechanics, invest in the systems, invest in cloud infrastructure that allows players to communicate to each other and chat and build alliances. All those things are they're assets because they're incredibly expensive to build out, and you learn how to do them the hard way. And once you have them all in place, it allows you to monetize a great experience that you've built, a really fun game. But the nice thing is that fun game will be able to pay everybody's bills and make a really successful company.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, the platform is maturing. And, you know, mature platforms tend to favor the incumbents, those with learned knowledge, deep pockets. And venture capitalists tend to move on to invest in things that are newer. The best time for a venture capitalist is actually investing when a platform launches that's going to be a big hit. That's where they will make their outsized returns. But mobile is still growing at a huge pace. So I don't think we're at the end of innovation or new players coming onto the market. I mean, Flappy Birds is an excellent example of one guy being able to come out of nowhere and make a huge, huge hit. Temple Run, lots of different games that have origins with indies and small teams. That opportunity still exists because the growth of the platform is so large.
Sho, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of embarrassing, but we finally localized. So we've been just having the English versions, at least in the US and Canada studios. That was the game that we're marketing. We finally localized into FIGs, French, Italian, German, and Portuguese, and we're seeing a massive revenue from these. So just to say, like, we really have to open a little bit, be more optimistic that there's a whole nother market that you just don't encounter in day to day, but there's there for you.
Now, when looking at the mobile market and where we're at right now, you kind of compare it to other gaming industries, and the traditional line of thinking is that the hardcore guys will start supporting a platform first, and then get the kind of ball rolling on the installed base, and then it grows the business from there. But then over the last few years, we've seen companies like Nintendo do well with the casual market, but to a point. So where do you see the mobile gaming market headed? Is it going to be dependent on the hardcore guys? Is it going to go after the casual market? Will the hardcore market matter at all to the big mobile companies?
I got to say, I mean, look, a smartphone is a device that's everybody carries with them. And as you increase the demographics that are being exposed to it, casual is the gaming genre that is going to speak to most people. So I don't think you're going to see any type of change in casual leading kind of the mass market. But I do think you're going to start seeing more and more hardcore gamers coming onto mobile platforms. As you see, smartphones and tablets becoming more and more powerful, I think you're going to see more hardcore gamers playing in their living room on a smart device versus necessarily buying the next gen console game, particularly when that's connected in a smart way to their large screen TV. I mean, it's the same thing that happened in PCs. You used to worry intensely about the specs of your PC when you bought it. And now it's not really that much of an issue anymore. You might add a couple gigs of RAM, you might get a slightly larger hard drive, but you really don't pay that close attention to it.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan completely. Sorry if I interrupted you. I think the evolution of the technologies, the device, and internet connectivity is definitely going to open up a lot more, the ways that the companies can offer. I think, people will be playing a AAA synchronous games down the road, and that's right now is limited by the internet connectivity, but it will definitely go. For example, Apple just started supporting 100 megabyte. It used to be 50, and so that we'll continue to see that kind of growth. So yeah.
I agree with both panelists. It also depends on how you look at the market. If you look at the market in the form of MAU or in the form of users and usage, by definition, a mass market casual game will have the most users. But if you view the market and look at distribution of revenue, most of the revenue is going to sit at the top with the high monetizing, lower DAU games. You already see that now in the top grossing ranks. If you look at top grossing, you're going to see all the same type of games. They're not Flappy Birds. They're not very surface layer games. They're very deep experiences where players combine and chat and attack each other.
So even though, like those whales, let's say, they're spending a lot of money, and the hardcore guys are important, but you guys still don't see them really shaping the market so much? Is it still more about reaching the mass market and getting to the widest audience possible?
There's a place for both. I mean, one of the most impressive things that we've been able to see on mobile is just how fast you can grow, which is unique to the platform. Like 10 people can reach 100 million users with $1 million. And on PC a few years ago, it would take a 100-person team to raise $10 million and a few years to reach 100 million people. That's always going to be an asset and something you have to watch out for, and that will favor new participants coming in. But everybody has to make money, so at some point, I think it goes back to consolidation, and thankful for those guys that can get rolled into larger teams and larger companies that can help them make money with their skills.
I mean, the platform's ubiquitous. I mean, everybody's carrying around smartphones, and that will continue to grow. So you'll pick up all the different demographics, so they'll all be there. There'll be different techniques depending on the developer strategy.
All right, what are some of the challenges in mobile gaming coming up for the next few years in the near future?
I think there's going to be challenge over quality and players' time continuously. With larger players coming in, I think it will be interesting to see whether the traditional console players, how much an investment they'll be making in mobile. You know, we just seen a Blizzard taking over iPad this week. I think EA, Activisions, and all these companies that know how to create quality games are probably going to be making larger investments. So that will be a challenge that some of the companies would be facing, including Gree.
What do you guys think?
I think it still comes down to acquisition and retention. So the discoverability challenges and then the re-engagement loop. I think Facebook did an admirable job by transitioning to mobile, particularly with their app install process. And it's going to be a company like that that has placement on the home screen that not only provides you that install path outside of your organics that you might typically get in the App Store, but also will provide you that re-engagement loop where you can get a user back into your game even if you're installed on like the 7th page. Those are still the things that are the challenges that I see over the next few years. Lots of new different companies and platforms to help solve that problem, but that's going to remain the biggest challenge, in my opinion, over the next few years.
I agree. I think it goes back to the first question, discovery and engagement and search. You can see the trend in our market when it comes to discoverability and advertising. I remember a few years ago when I was at Tapjoy, it was just Tapjoy Ad Mob. You can buy some installs with Millennial, and that was about all the choices you had. So you didn't really need a very sophisticated team to be able to get discovered. You just spent $10,000 and you got ranked by Tapjoy, and then there you go, you're discovered. The more mature markets like Japan, you have to hire and outsource an entire agency because there's more than 20, 50, 60 channels across multiple platforms, TV, Subway, you name it, and you can see our market heading in that direction. The sheer number of just mobile network sources that we work with are more than about 20 to 25, 30. And that gets complicated, and that requires a really skilled full-time staff to get users and find a qualified audience. And then you start to go back to the investment thesis where user acquisition and discovery, it becomes again a core asset that you need to invest in because it becomes not only expensive to acquire users, but expensive to build out the infrastructure that allows you to do it for an entire portfolio of games.
All right, one more question, and then we're going to open this up to the audience. We have a few more minutes left. You talked about these new avenues of reaching out to consumers, especially like TV advertising, which seems kind of old school, as a way to reach a consumer. Do you think those kind of can the mobile gaming industry learn from traditional media and old school media and say, like, this is a way, is TV advertising effective? For example, like we see Candy Crush Saga, Clash of Clans reaching out to the mass market that way. Does it work?
I think it depends on the application. It actually is incredibly effective in the gambling world to actually buy ads on TV. I know in Japan it's an effective route to acquire players. As you have this discoverability and re-engagement problem, branding will become more important. And as the platform matures and incumbents are more successful because they have the deeper pockets, they're the ones that are going to be able to afford to do branding experiments on TV and find out those right paths. So yes, I do actually think you're going to see a growth in the use of television as an acquisition and retention channel for mobile devices, particularly as you start seeing more gaming in the living room around those mobile devices, not necessarily consoles, but mobile devices.
Any thoughts on that?
I think it's very category dependent. TV advertising right now just doesn't really make any sense unless your LTV is above $20, anywhere from $20 to $200. So then you spend TV advertising to hit every single person that could potentially play your game. That gets one impression. If that brings down your CPI below $20, it makes sense. As far as lessons that we could learn from the more traditional platforms, there's definitely lessons we could learn in terms of things like storytelling and branding and creating a why to the entire experience. Like on mobile, it seems like there's a lot of doing and functionality, and polish has taken precedent. But the why everything is happening and why do I emotionally care and what's the backstory and what do I want to accomplish within the game is the next level of maturity that. As far as the art form of games themselves is the next level of maturity, which will end up improving the entire experience and improve with engagement, improve with reach.
Show any
I
thoughts?
think he touched upon it very well. I think can we learn from brands? Yes. You know, the qualities about bringing like humorous, bringing like characters, building a brand on games. Storytelling, that's something like mobile gaming have not thought about yet, but when we're seeing a mature market, we have to go beyond that, so we have to learn. But I think, you know, the great thing about mobile is you can definitely track. You know, you can see the funnels, and with TV, it's very hard to do that. So I think if you're small companies, if you're mid-sized company, if your first priorities should always be mobile. But definitely, you know, we need to learn from brands how to retain users, how to really get attentions that we need to drive our business. But I think when it comes to investment, I think mobile will continue to be, and like Christian said, TV is more for a selective, probably a large company that it can actually afford to make a larger investments.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I apologize for not leaving us more time, but is any questions from the audience? And don't worry about that error rate siren. It's every Tuesday at noon, they do a test, so we're all okay. Any questions from the audience? Good. Raise your hand. All right, I think we're good, so thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. Thank you.